Welcome back to another addition to our spooky video library here at graveyarddance.com. Today, instead of a video about one particular topic or the other, we thought it may be fun to do a video about a collection of spooky, ghostly or haunted places and things that we've come across over the course of the last few weeks while looking for new ideas for our channel. Kick back, grab a snack and a beverage of choice and enjoy this week's offering. The only thing we ask is, please don't forget to like our video and please hit subscribe to our channel and even check out our social media links and merch store in the description box below. I'm a struggling mom, and since YouTube doesn't really promote videos like mine that much anymore, you'd be helping me out so much by simply taking a second out of your lives to just give me a like and subscribe. I can't tell you how much I appreciate those who do. The first story we have for you is the story of Elizabeth's grave in Chillicothe, Ohio. I have to admit, I've known about this one for many years. A group of friends of mine and I used to love going ghost hunting before we all got married, settled down and had kids. We used to travel all over the country like a modern day version of Scooby-Doo's Mystery Inc. It was a lot of fun, and I have to say, we've seen some terrifying things. One of the scariest things we ever saw wasn't ghost related, but it was told about in one of my former videos right here. It's the story about the devil in an Arkansas cave. Spoiler alert, it wasn't the actual devil as in Satan himself, but what we saw I'd say was even more frightening than that. Just go to graveyarddance.com, click videos and scroll back till you see the orange thumbnail for that story though. Back to Elizabeth's grave though. Prior to 2015, if you went to Mount Union, Pleasant Valley Cemetery and looked for the grave of Elizabeth Eagleson, you'd have seen one of the most haunted graves out there. We had heard the story about the tombstone moving around and didn't believe it until we saw it with our own eyes. Supposedly, the story goes that Elizabeth was hung from a tree near the back of the cemetery. In some versions, she hung herself, and in other versions of the legend, she was hung by some men who was angry over an inheritance left to her from her deceased husband. In either case, she was buried near the front of the cemetery, far away from the tree where she was hung. For whatever reason, it seems Elizabeth's spirit is still not at peace because her headstone slowly drags itself back to the location of where she was hung. We thought someone had just started playing pranks on the locals, so we went out and set up some game cameras to see if it would move by itself. Although it was extremely slow, it did indeed start to move slowly and had moved itself several yards before we got creeped out and left. What do you think? Was she trying to tell us all something? We went back in 2015 and the graves all seemed to be moved for some reason. I don't know, but the place scares me to death. The next story isn't exactly a ghost story per se, but it is strange and eerie and downright spooky nonetheless. Whether it's actually true or not, who knows? If anyone has any info on this story, we'd love to hear about it in the comments section below. As the legend goes, depending on who you hear it from, our story starts out in Birmingham, Alabama, somewhere near the corner of 4th Place and 11 Court North. Some say he died during a bike ride and others say he was murdered. Either way, this little boy supposedly died sometime in the 50s or 60s, and the police say they can't find any records due to a fire at the station. What was known though, as you can see in this photo, a small lifelike statue of some type sat on the porch of one of the houses here for over a decade or two before disappearing, and no one seems to know where it went. Many believe that the statue was actually the embalmed corpse of the dead child because his mother could not let him go. People who would get close enough to see it said that it looked exactly like a real-life little boy sitting there. The parents and family of Darius are all long gone now, and no one that we know of seems to know what the story of this photo actually is, other than the legend we just told you. What do you think? Deceased child or just a really accurate statue? We'd love to know your thoughts. Another place we have been to, although it has been many years ago, was one of the spookiest places we'd ever been to. At the time we went, it was opened up and for sale at the time, so we were able to legally be there. Since then though, it has been bought and is now boarded up and trespassing is not allowed. It's probably just as well for the spirits who live in the old St. Mary's Hospital in Ironton, Missouri, which was the first hospital to open in Iron County, Missouri. Since it was closed nearly 50 years ago, the building became very dilapidated and run down. It was in need of a full restoration when we viewed it. We were there 3 times after hearing stories of dark shadowy figures walking around outside near the morgue entrance in the back, and stories of ghostly figures which centered mainly around the first and second story elevator shaft. The first couple of times we went, we didn't see or notice anything odd, but the third time was the charm. In many of the old hospital rooms, the paint is, or was hanging in huge botchy spots where the paint just hangs there half hanging off the wall. We noticed the room we were in had all its windows intact. There was no hole or ventilation issues it could have been, and no air was stirring around. It was just a hot, muggy August day in southeast Missouri. As we were talking about how we didn't think it was haunted there, the paint chips started moving around as if a fan was in the room. Within a second of that, we heard a whispery, guttural voice say as clearly as could be the words, "Get out!" Needlessly to say, we did and have not gone back. Speaking of large spooky places, another great spot to potentially spot a ghost, and this place is actually public and still open, so it's legal for you to go there, is the Driscoll Hotel in Austin, Texas. Built in 1886, the Driscoll was the ultimate in luxury at the time of being built. If you've ever been lucky enough to stay here, the atmosphere here is absolutely jaw-dropping, especially if you stay anywhere near rooms 525 or room 429, or anywhere else around the hotel, where you may run into the ghost of Colonel Jesse Driscoll, who was so distraught over losing the beautiful motel after a high-stakes poker game that he never got over it. The rooms we mentioned both had brides die eerily similar 20 years apart, both on their wedding night and both at their own hands. Many have heard screams coming from the rooms when they were apparently empty. There's also a ghost of a little girl who walks the halls, so if you're into ghost hunting, this may be a fun place to start. The next time we visit Texas again, this will definitely be on our bucket list of ghostly spots to visit. If you happen to be anywhere near Burton Agnes, England, and want the unholy hell scared out of you, the next story is for you. There, at Burton Agnes Hall, there is a box. Inside this box is said to hold the very old skull of Catherine M. Griffith, who died in the same house after being attacked and beheaded there in 1620. People often say they see a ghostly dark form walking around the box right before hearing a piercing, hair-raising, terrifying scream which appears to come from the skull itself. What do you think? Could Catherine still be upset about dying literally hundreds of years after her death? Or do you think it could be some type of residual energy coming from the terrifying and horrific experience that she had to have endured? Would you visit the skull, and if so, would it scare you? Personally, that thing would scare the living hell out of me. I don't think I'd go near it myself, but that's just me. Finally, we have one more odd and spooky thing for you to check out. How many of y'all like art, and more specifically, paintings? Here's one I'll bet you think twice about before hanging it in your home. The painting of the Crying Boy was created by artist Giovanni Bragolin and became famous quickly. It was then mass-produced and was found in many homes across Britain. What's so scary about that, you may ask? Well, it seems that almost every home this painting hung in, caught fire and would often burn to the ground. Even more spooky, the painting would often be unharmed by the flames. Many claim these fires as mere coincidences, but most agree that there has to be something to it. If it was a simple coincidence, as many would have you believe, then why wouldn't the paintings themselves burn? They were often copied and made from a variety of materials, so you'd think at least some of them would burn, right? Another thing to ask is, why is the boy crying? Could that have something to do with a curse? We'd love to hear what you think down below. You can visit us at all our social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Rumble, Instagram, and of course YouTube. The link to our merch shop is down below, and a graveyard dance shirt is a great conversation starter when you're around like-minded people who are into scary places and true crime, dark history, and everything else in between. Thanks again for taking the time to view my video, and I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Till next time, thanks for watching.